Hey, good morning. It's Tuesday, January 5th, Tuesday morning. Just as a side note, it's an important day for the United States when one election in Georgia will essentially determine whether or not we move in an entirely socialist direction as a country. But that's all in God's hands. And even that is under the heading of what we're reading here about Abram and the call to Abram. And it's extremely helpful and personal and comforting to us because the things that we're reading here are things that are certain and sure. No election is going to change that. No runoff election is going to change that. No government going in the wrong direction is going to change that. These words are our life and our comfort. So in Genesis, and this morning, this gets really personal. Okay, for me, the person, as you see the picture back there of my family, my 5 children, 30 years ago, if you can believe that. And the choices that we make impact what our children are now. It's that personal, it's that important. So I pray that this will be impactful to me and to you as well. So we read the narrative, the story here. We're familiar with it. God says to Abram, leave your country, your people, your father's household, and go to the land I will give you. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you, and your name will be great, and you will be a blessing. I will protect you. All peoples of the earth will be blessed by you. Now, that sounds great, right? It's a nice narrative. I'm going to give you this land. I'm going to bless you and keep you. The problem is the land he gave them, if we read a little bit further on in the chapter, is Canaan. And Canaan was full of people who were quite happy to be there. If you recall, these are the giant warriors. In many cases, the 9-foot tall warriors. They had no plan of giving up their land to anyone. Abram didn't have a seed. He had no children. He's 75 years old. And yet God says, I'm going to give you this land. I'm going to bless you with children, and they're going to populate the earth. There's no earthly reason for Abram to believe this. And that's just the point. There is no earthly reason. But he acted on faith. And here's an example of it. I'm just going to read 2 passages from Dale Ralph Davis's comments on this book. On this section is from his book, Faith of Our Father, the story of Abraham. If you haven't picked it up, it's totally worth it. Listen to what Davis says about this journey Abraham has been told to go on. It says, these verses tell us what we just read, tell us a good bit. Who went on the journey, how old Abram was at the time, the destination. Yet the keynote comes in verse 4a, when it says, so Abraham went as God has spoken to him. I haven't read that yet, but that was Abram's response. He went as God had spoken to him. Notice, by the way, how much is left out, how very economical the Bible is in this report. The journey was a major undertaking, but there was not a word about the precise route or the various weather conditions encountered. Nothing about whether they had to fight off bandits or whether they traveled with a large caravan, or whether they ate at Dairy Queen or at Chick-fil-A along the way. None of that. Abram went as Yahweh had spoken to him, in spite of family ties, his own age, and perhaps uncertainty about his destination, at least at first. Simply, as Yahweh had spoken to him, nothing much matters more than obeying the word of God. That's so moving. But you see, this is not the end of God making these statements like this. It's just the beginning, because Jesus comes to you and me in exactly the same way as he came to Abram, the man who would become Abraham. Notice what Davis says. So God loved the world that he called Abram. And he keeps adding to Abram's seed, just as he promised, gathering more and more of Abram's children. And he is still gathering people to share Abram's faith. That's what this world is all about. Note carefully what David says. The call he gave Abram has not really changed. What Yahweh demanded of Abram in verse 1, that he leave his family and country and all that. What Yahweh demanded of Abram in verse 1 is really quite like what Jesus demands of us, say in Matthew 10. The one who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. The one who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And whoever does not take his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me. Though it sounds different from Genesis 12:1, it's really the same thing. Jesus is simply demanding the place of supreme affection in your life and my life. That's all. Just demanding that place of supreme affection. So David concludes this chapter. So what is it that's keeping you from coming to the one who calls you? See, Abram didn't stop and ask a lot of questions, although they were there to be asked. He did what God wanted him to do, and he followed him. May we have the grace to have the courage to do the same. And that's the thought for the day. Lord willing, we'll see you tonight. Have a great day. Bye-bye.